Welcome to Off-Duty Engineer. I am Alan. This channel is for some of my scale modeling projects, plastic aircraft, wooden ships, and dioramas to display them. This is a summary of the scale model build of the wooden model of the Viking Ship, the kit by Artesania Kit in 1/75th scale. First, the photos of the final result. This is a model of one of the many famous Gokstad Viking ships built in the 9th and the 10th century. This is a small model in 1/75th scale, but the intricate and nice details make it an interesting model to build and to view. These Viking ships were propelled either by manpower and oars or by sail. There are 14 oars on board the ship for 14 Viking oarsmen, plus captain, navigator and a few crew. A bit of a squeeze. And all living in the open and on the open sea. On full sail, it could get up to 10 knots of speed. The most famous Gokstad Viking ship is the one discovered in Norway. It is of the 9th century. It was completely refurbished and is now displayed in the Viking Ship Museum in Oslo, Norway. It is the largest preserved Viking ship in Norway. I have family lineage from Sweden, so I'm still a small part Swedish. I did trace this with DNA and Ancestry.com back to the 1750s. Therefore, I am a Viking. Or part Viking anyway. It is interesting to think that my ancestors may have crossed the oceans in ships like this Gokstad Viking ship in the 10th century. That is probably why I was drawn to build this model. Next is the details of the Viking kit. The kit details are: the kit is by Artesania Kit, a Spanish company offering many wooden ship kits. This kit number is 19001-N. The -N is for the 2021 update with new parts and laser cut wood. It is on scale mates. The scale is 1:75. The completed model is 293 mm long, 359 mm width with the oars extended out, and 275 mm high. The full ship would have been over 20 meters long, stem to stern. The instruction is on a CD in the kit, but this was the 2016 edition. I downloaded the 2021 version and used it as a soft copy on my Surface Pro screen as instruction. The box contents is one packet of wood sheets, laser cut, one roll of strips of various sizes, one plastic box with all the small pieces and the material for the sail, and the CD. Although this is an out-of-the-box build, wooden builds end up having a high percentage of own styles, methods and initiative to add to the result. The instruction book is well detailed and easy to follow. The book is 36 pages long, in full color and in multiple languages. The first pages are generic instructions about cutting, gluing, filling, painting, etc. The actual build is covered in 21 pages of this book, but there is sufficient detail to follow closely and get everything correct. The simplicity is an indication of the amount of handwork going to be needed. There is no skill level indicated apart from over 14 years old. Next is the building of the Viking ship kit. The first step was to clear my workspace, inspect and study the wood sheets, wood strips, rods, etc. and parts, and page through the instruction book to get a good overview. I made an inventory of what else would be needed: sharp scalpel with different blades, wood glue, stains, varnish, filler, sandpaper, other tools, very fine saw, clamps, etc. The tools and skills for wooden kits are a lot different from plastic models. The keel and ribs are section 1, so this was the place to start. The laser cut wood made it easier for the parts to pop out and are really accurate in dimension and fit. I used standard PVA wood glue for most of the build. Joints must be tight or clamped well. It takes about 2 hours to set, but allows 6 or more hours before you work at it for sanding, etc. The deck base is very thin ply, so it needs to be bent to follow the curve of the top of the boat. Test clamping and a few techniques to get a good plan together. It is good to have the model secured so that it does not move, to make handling a lot easier. Here I used clamp, ice cream sticks and elastic bands. Wood is forgiving in that it can be sanded and filled later with no detraction to the finish. Note that a thinner hardwood decking goes over the top of this deck base. Next is the hull strips. There will be 2 layers of strips. A thick layer is a base made of lighter wood. then a topping of thinner hardwood strips over the base. Laying the first strips is the most important, as it sets the lay of the rest to follow. The strips on both sides of the keel need to be done at the same time so as not to twist the frame. Combination of different types of clamps and elastic bands worked here. I did pre-bend the wood strips by letting them lie in boiling water for a few minutes, then bending to approximate shape by hand. They can still be damp when glued because PVA wood glue does not mind this. Continue the strips from the keel outwards. Then about 1/3 of the way, start from the deck line downwards. Close the gap by cut fitting each strip. Continue completing all the whole base strips. These photos are the whole with the base strips so far. I painted PVA wood glue into all the gaps and surfaces inside and outside to strengthen. Next is the cleanup. This base needs to be absolutely smooth for the next layer. Here the whole base strips are sanded. Not 100% yet, still have to fill and sand again to be smooth and even. A look ahead point. Test fit the outer keel to ensure that the hull profile is correct. Use standard wood filler from the hardware store to fill the hull, sand and smooth. Repeat until there is a good result. Now the hull base is complete and ready to move on. I was very pleased with the progress and results so far. The outer hull strips are next. This is hardwood. The wood is very brittle and splits easily. There should be no gaps in this layer. All errors will be visible. I started at the deck line this time to ensure that the best work was most visible. No need to pre-bend these strips. They are very thin and pliable. They bend in one direction only, of course. PVA wood glue and masking tape was the primary method of holding these strips in place. I could do 2 strips at a time. A progress to check and see that all is going to plan. No gaps. Good so far. Now work from the keel outwards. Careful cutting to fit each piece in place. Redo if needed and use the incorrect cut piece for a shorter length later. The outer hull strips are all on. Very light sanding 600 grit because the strips are very thin and you do not want to go through this layer. Looks good so far. Next was to finalize the outer keel. Stain the wood dark using hardware store wood stain. A small sample bottle goes a long way. Test fit the keel and trim the hardwood strips to fit neatly. Then glue the outer keel to the hull. This is the progress so far for the outside of the hull. So far all is okay. The top deck is also very thin hardwood. Carefully plan and cut to fit. I did use a paper template not shown in the photos to assist. Then glue the pieces on. The ice cream stick and elastic band method worked here again. Then all the excess can be trimmed off. Do this carefully because the hardware tends to crack along its grain. The result was great. Then seal with a wood sealer or sanding sealer. Final finish and sanding with 800 grit. Then 2 coats of varnish to the outside and the deck. I used a standard hardware shop sealer and gloss varnish. It was satisfying to see the completed work so far. Things start to speed up now that the base work is done. The inside floor is fitted. I sanded the strips first and sanded the edges to show texture to the floor. Then a coat of sealer, sand and varnish. Note the clamping arrangement that I made to hold the model while working on it. 2 stainless steel rectangular tubes and clamps to hold the keel. I used this until the end. The inside fixtures are next prepared, pre-fitted, stained, then glued in place. The alignment of the points that hold the mast is important, so check and check again. Note the square in the background with optical alignment with the eye. Next I prepared the mast, spar and rudder parts. The mast and spar needed to be tapered, so this was done with a rough sandpaper on the block, then sealer and finer paper to finish. These parts are stained black. Next was to prepare the 14 sets of oars. The shafts had to be tapered and then the handle at the end shaped. The paddles also had to be shaped. Then fine sanding to smooth off and then sealed. The paddles were stained dark brown. These 14 sets took a while to prepare. The oars could then be completed, gluing the paddles to the shafts and then varnished. This is the progress so far. The mast is fitted, the rigging stay lines are added using the brass loops and fittings in the parts box. It is starting to look like a ship now. The sail needed thread work with a needle and a lot of patience. The sail had to be laced to the top spar. The lacing stitches had to be regular and straight. Then the top spar with the sail is fitted to the mast with a rope and pulley. The lines from the sail ends to the tie blocks on the deck at the back. Next up, prepare the model stand and the stands for the oars. I decided to have all the oars stowed on board instead of having them extended on the outside. I felt that if the oars were outwards, then there should ideally be figures such as the captain and crew to make this more realistic. Next was to do the shields that are shown on the side of the ship. There are 8 shields on each side, 16 in total. Various images show these in different color schemes. I planned the colors on a laptop and printed this out as a guide. There were a lot of primary colors. The wooden discs for the shields were cut and sanded, then sealed and sanded again. Tamiya acrylic paint was used with masking and hand brush painted. Then the steel edging loops could be glued on with super glue. This is the progress so far. All the final parts are ready. They were all glued in place. The shields, the barrels, the hatchet and the bailing bucket. The head and dragon heads are ready. The oars are ready to be stowed on board. These parts glued on with super glue. The stand is also ready and being used. All done. Here are photos of the Viking ship complete. This was a very satisfying build. This build took about 6 weeks working on and off. The Artesania Kit is new with new parts for 2021, so all fitted well. A good quality kit. Recommended. It was good to think about the Vikings and their influence in the world, their endeavors, their hardships, and their achievements, and to remember my ancestry. I really enjoyed building this model. That is all. I hope that you enjoyed this. Please follow, like, subscribe, etc. See you next time. Thank you.